Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we're joined by a very special guest. She is a transformational coach, leadership strategist, author, and speaker, Ms. Anouk Brumfield. How you doing today, Anouk?
I am doing so super wonderful. And I am really elated to be here today.
I'm pretty excited to have you because, man, you have quite an interesting story.
Yes, I do. I cannot believe that time is just super flying by. Next week, I will be 55 years old. And when I reflect back on my life and my journey, there are a lot of learnings that I've had from it. And I'm just so grateful of where I am and what I've been able to do. And now how I'm able to kind of help other people as well.
That's awesome. So, the number one question the audience is probably wondering, who is Anouk Brumfield?
Very good question. First of all, I would like to say that growing up, I hated the name Anouk because it was so unique, but nobody could ever get it right. And then as I got older, I loved the name Anouk because it became a very great conversational piece. And then as I began to research to understand what the name meant, I truly loved it. And the name Anouk means grace and favor. And we all need a lot of grace, and I know we love favor. And so I was born in Shreveport, Louisiana, very humble beginnings. My parents had me when they were very young. They were high school sweethearts. And so my grandmother ended up taking my brother and I in to rear us. And my grandmother only had a third or sixth grade education, but she was the wisest woman that I've ever known in my life. She taught me so much about the value of hard work, about building and nurturing relationships, and how you have to make sure you keep your word. And so early on, I used to ask so many questions, and I got on everybody's nerves, but I was always really analytical, trying to make things make sense. And one of the things that I saw in my environment was that I began to dream bigger. I knew that I did not want to be a product of my environment. And because I say humble beginnings, it was really like what's considered a hood area in the local Shreveport area. It's the Cedar Grove community. And I began to really have big ideas, big visions, big dreams. And then I just had to kind of figure out how to kind of plug it together. So I began to learn the value of creating relationships. So as I begin to create relationships, when I get to college, I create a relationship with a placement director who got me an opportunity to do an interview for an internship that I didn't even qualify for. And then I ended up getting that internship. And then I started my corporate career as a sophomore in college. And I worked my way all the way up to vice president, senior partner, for IBM. So throughout my corporate career, I was in corporate America for 32 years. I had the opportunity to work in so many different industries with so many different clients, so many different teams. And I was known for my global leadership skills and abilities. And I was known to be that girl that can transform people, processes, and organizations. And it was something I truly, truly enjoyed. And a couple of years ago, actually, it's almost 3 years ago now, I retired in 2023 because God was telling me it was time to do something different and to take some of the skills experiences that I learned in corporate to kind of help the broader community. And so that's how I began to get into this life coach, writing books, speaking, doing workshops, and all that stuff because I believe that no one gets anywhere alone and we all need a village. So I'm really happy to, work and talk and continue to share the things that I've learned so that it can kind of help other people. I truly love serving. I truly love inspiring, encouraging, motivating, and empowering people.
I love it. You gave us a lot to unpack there, too. Uh,
Mhm.
what were those dreams and aspirations you felt in your heart as a kid?
Yeah, as a kid, I was always trying to figure things out. And so early on as a kid, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I thought I wanted to be an attorney. I thought I wanted to be a politician. Like I would see something. I was like, oh, I think I want to do that. I was trying to figure out my out because at that time I didn't know who I was. I didn't know the value of doing assessments and to kind of figure out what my purpose was. So I just saw things and people and positions and I became really intrigued. So then I began to say, hey, I can do all of that. And then I was like, I'm going to do that in life. And my mom um, did income taxes for people. That was her one of her businesses. And so I started helping her with that early on. And I began to realize that I was really good at math. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to do something with math. And so when I got to college, they do this assessment to kind of figure out what you're good at to maybe help figure out what your major needed to be. So I originally majored in business administration because I knew I was very business minded and I wanted to know those types of skills because I felt like those skills could be transferable. But then my sophomore year, when nobody was looking for business administration majors for internships, I actually changed my major to accounting because I said, I was good with numbers when I used to help my mother with taxes. And I just changed the major to get the internship interview. And then I ended up landing the intern. And then I just went down that path. So as I got in corporate America, I kind of started out as an accountant, then a business analyst. And then I just began to really progress up the corporate ladder. And I've had a chance to do a lot of different roles, project management roles, consulting roles, process improvement roles. There have you, I probably did it, sales roles, delivery roles, all over the place. And what I learned from that is that a lot of times in college, they learn you how to learn. And as long as you can kind of patch in or plug in and be coachable, you can probably do almost anything. And so I felt like I had a very successful career that I'm very grateful for. And now I'm really grateful where I am in this season of my life, where I can truly say that I know who I am and what I'm supposed to do, and I can be aligned with my purpose so that I can go fill this latter half of my life in purpose on purpose.
Nice. I love how you just kept being led to where you were supposed to be the whole time.
Yes.
God works in mysterious ways sometimes.
Yes.
You became a senior partner and executive vice president at IBM. What did that climb teach you most about yourself?
That I can do anything. And I would say again, I was a skinny, shy girl from the hood that was reared from a grandmother that only had a third or sixth grade education. And when I became a vice president senior partner for IBM, I, reflected back through my life and realized that there are truly some key ingredients to success. One is you truly have to know yourself because in this life, it can get confusing at times, and you need to stay true to yourself and you know that you've been in your own skin all your life, but sometimes we don't step back to really reflect what are our values, what are our interests, because life does change for us and things do change for us. So we have to make sure that we're continuously taking the time to self reflect. And sometimes you can still know yourself, but in life, that sometimes we're trying to imitate. We saw that this person is successful. So then we create our definition of success based upon somebody else's definition of success. And so we're performing. And so we have to take those masks off and be comfortable in our own skin and making sure that it's okay to be our authentic self. And so we need to remember that an original is worth way more than a copy. You can have people that can give you advice that you want to emulate, but you really have to make sure you're staying true to yourself. And so once you know yourself and you be yourself, the next thing is you do have to surround yourself because life is not meant to be an island, and that it really does take a village. It really does take you having your tribe, having your network, of sponsors and coaches and mentors to kind of help you along this. So those are the things that I learned as I progressed up that ladder and became a senior partner and vice president for such a large global company as IBM, is that I truly had to know myself. Then I had to be comfortable to be myself. And then I had to surround myself. So I believe and I know that I advanced all the way up that ladder, not because I was so great, not because I was so terrific, not because I was so deserving, not because I was so smart, but it's because I really had some favor from God. And also that I began to surround myself around people that could truly guide me and aid me. And I just always tried to have a servant attitude and be that servant leader, that I was helping others. And so a lot of times when you're helping others, you also receive help as well. So they say that you reap what you sow, and I feel like that's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah. A lot of leadership, anyways, is all about serving others.
Yes. Yep. It's not about a title. Sometimes people get leadership confused, thinking it's a title or position, and it's not that. It's really an action. It's like it's about, leading and serving the people, because people will work harder for you if they feel like that they like you and trust you and that you see them. And employee satisfaction is directly proportionate to client satisfaction. So if you spend the time serving your people and letting the people know that you care and that you see them, they will work so much harder for you, and it makes your role leading so much easier.
Yeah. Were you actually were you did you feel fulfilled when you reached that milestone and that goal of becoming?
That's a very good question. It's so interesting. When I first got into corporate America, they always said that there was a glass ceiling, especially for females. And so I always wanted to say, I want to see if there really is a glass in that ceiling. So I worked really hard to kind of progress up that ladder and received a lot of guidance, and very grateful for the career, love the compensation. When I got there, I can't say that I felt fulfilled. And I would also say, I remember when I became an executive, I became a director initially before I became a vice president. And the year that I got promoted to an executive, it was the most unfulfilled year ever. So I was really progressing up the corporate ladder, very successful professionally. But on the inside, I felt like a failure because I was working so hard. I had become a single mom. I was traveling all the time. I missed my son's entire seventh grade year. And then I didn't know any of his teachers. I was not active in any of his school activities. And I felt like a failure. And I often reflect back to say that in life, oftentimes, you have to really prioritize appropriately, knowing that there's some balls that you are juggling that you don't want to drop, and you don't want to really drop priorities like family, like your health and things like that. So that's kind of like how my journey went. And then as I became a vice president senior partner, I was so excited when I got that appointment, and I began to say, now I have to kind of figure out that the pressure is on. There's more I need to do. How can I truly serve and help other people? And then, I was told that I need to truly assess my purpose and to make sure I was fulfilling my purpose. And so I would say yes and no when I got to senior partner and vice president. But my first appointment to executive ranks was definitely not something that I felt fulfilled at all. I felt like a failure. No one at work would ever know that, because, of course, I had to get to work, do what I needed to do, smile. But on the inside, I did not feel fulfilled because I felt like I had neglected my son over, work.
I love your honesty there because I know from my own personal experiences that when I was going for high goals, that when I reached them, I did feel unfulfilled at times.
Yes, yeah. It's amazing that on the outside you can look successful, and on the inside, you can be feeling the total opposite. And so that's why I do encourage people that you have to really define your own operational definition of success. And that definition could change over time based upon different priorities and seasons of life that you're in.
Yeah, so true. What inspired you to leave everything behind and say, "Hey, I'm going to become a transformational coach and speaker"?
Well, to be totally transparent, God had been talking to me, telling me that it was time to do something different and make a broader impact on my community. And I didn't really want to do that because I'm like, I love my paycheck and I had such a great compensation and I could never believe that a girl from the hood was making this type of money. And so I began to say, not right now, maybe later, not right now. And I just kept not feeling as, fulfilled, and worked with some wonderful people, had some wonderful opportunities, learned so much, still in contact with a lot of them today. And then I just said, you know what, I'm going to, take that leap of faith. And I don't know the full path. I love to continuously develop and grow. So I started to do a lot of development. And then I began to say, hey, I don't know the entire path, but I know I need to take a step. And I felt confident that God was continuously put a lot of people along my path to aid me and to help me like he had always done. And that's the experience that I'm having. I took that one step, and then there's been angels and a lot of other people to kind of help guide me for step 2, 3, and there have you.
Yeah, usually
Yeah.
you don't gain clarity until you start taking like three or get to like
Yeah.
step 3 or 4.
Exactly. Totally. Totally.
That's the one thing
Yeah.
nobody understands.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Was there any fear? How much fear and trepidation did you have to come over by just saying, "Okay, God, I'm going to go all in on this"?
There was a lot of fear, and I would definitely say that I had to spend some time alone. Like, I am still old school. I like to kind of write out things, my to-do list, my goals, and I have to continuously self-reflect and making sure that I feel fulfilled by looking at my life plan and to see if I am moving in the right direction. Because again, when I was in corporate, I knew that I was getting paid on the 15th and the last day of every month. And, I retired. My goal in my 40s was to retire at 55. I ended up retiring at 52. And my financial advisors told me, yes, you can do this. But most of my stuff was kind of tied into retirement type of accounts. And so I'm like, okay, how do I bridge that gap between 52 and 59 and a half? And so I began to kind of store up, a lot of liquid funds and things like that. And then I'm like, what if, I run out, or what, and I just feel like God will always provide and put the people in your path, and you will be able to sustain and make it. But still today, I would say that sometimes that fear comes back up, and then I have to go look at my game plan again and assess and to say, good job, good job, good job. Oh, this didn't work out as planned, but you learn from it. And I think that's what happens a lot of times, that, sometimes people fear of failure, other people fear of success. And for me, I'm always fearing failure. And so once I really regroup to say, hey, this is my life, I can go co-create the life that I want, and this, I can do this life in my own terms. I'm the CEO of my life, and I can't worry about what other people's measurement tool is, right? And when I
Yeah,
do that, it helps me to calm my fears. But you know in all honesty, we're human. That's going to happen. You just have to have a mechanism to where you can minimize those fears.
yeah, so true. What types of services do you provide?
All types. So I actually do a lot of coaching. I do projects. So I do transformational, projects for different clients. And I also mentor folks. I do a lot of leadership workshops. I've written a leadership book, and so excited about that book. It's called You're Working Too Hard. And then I also have an opportunity to go into different spaces and to give people a lot of leadership tips. And I have an online course around leadership. And then the other side, because again, my purpose is to truly inspire, encourage, motivate, and empower. So I have an inspirational radio show that I host every week. And I also do a lot of motivational speaking engagements. I've started a nonprofit in my local community to help women and children. So I'm doing a lot of things to help with life skills, to help people become a better version of themselves. And I do feel like when much is given, much is required. So I like to spend a lot of time, helping, doing things, for the community. So I have a lot of paid services and then I do a lot of give back as well.
Nice.
Mhm.
What's the biggest challenge your clients face?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges is that when you kind of think about as people have career goals, they sometimes get out of balance. They feel like I can be successful either professionally or I can be professionally personally, but I can't do both. And that's what I try to spend time with, showing them that there are ways that you can be successful on all cylinders. And I don't like to just focus on just the career, that I feel like you have to focus on the whole self, because you don't want to be well accomplished here and that on the inside you still feel like you're unfulfilled or you feel like a failure. So I do try to coach people that I coach the whole person. I want us to reflect back on, who you are, so that you know that who is your authentic self, and then understand your why. Like, why do I do what I do? Why do I want what I want? So when times get tough or that fear comes in, that you can reflect back on, it's all worth it because I know my why. And then I try to make sure that we have goals in all categorical buckets, not just career goals, but financial goals and also life goals. Like, where do you want to travel? What do you want to see? So that you can kind of create an overall goal or plan for your overall life. But a lot of times it's just that people think I can have this or that. And I believe it's not an or statement, it's an and statement.
Yeah, I love that too, because when they write it out, they're kind of it's a better way where they can manifest it and kind of bring everything into reality.
Exactly, exactly.
You often speak about reinvention. What does that mean to you, and why is it a necessary tool in today's world?
Yeah, I think we have to always realize that things are going to change and that we must continuously grow. We must continuously be prepared for change. And for me, I was, had a, tremendous career in corporate, and so I was known as that corporate chick, that corporate leader. And now to say that I have to take all of those skills and knowledge and experience I learned there to figure out how to leverage that in this new environment, that's a pretty tall, daunting task at times. And to figure out, when someone says Anouk Brumfield, who do I really want to be known for, and how do I create that space for me that I'm kind of comfortable in? And so that has been a good opportunity for me to figure out how to properly, brand myself, even though, hey, I have the skills and knowledge to do a lot of things, but making sure that I am aligned with what I'm supposed to be doing now to really make sure I'm making the impact that I need to make to serve, overall. So that's kind of been my approach.
Nice. What mindset shift is essential for anyone navigating a major life or career transition?
Yeah, I would say that there are two key things. Is number one is to know that no matter what it is, you can really do it. So you have to first believe that. And oftentimes we're so hard on ourselves. Like, we give other people grace and we forgive other people, but we're so hard on ourselves. We're our own worst critics. And so the second thing I would say is give yourself some grace, that on this journey, no matter if it's a career journey or if it's personal journey, what have you, we're going to make some mistakes along the way. We're human. That's kind of part of it. So you got to give yourself some grace, learn from those mistakes, learn from what you might call, failure, and to figure out what are the lessons and how do I take those lessons to leverage me to my next chapter or whatever else I need to do. So those are the two things: is know that you can do it, and then give yourself some grace throughout the process.
Yeah, I think that all of us need to learn how to give ourselves a little bit more grace, because we're going to fail, especially
Yes.
if we're trying something new.
Exactly. Yeah, we used to do something in corporate, and it was saying fail, but go ahead and just fail fast,
Yeah.
right? And because you can kind of learn from it, and it's amazing that sometimes you do learn more when it's tough, right? And that is something that really, sticks with you a lot. I know when I reflect back on my life, the things that were as easy, I don't know if I appreciated it as much as well.
Yeah. It's
Mhm.
the harder things that you kind of appreciate more because you know what you had to struggle
Yeah,
to go through to get there.
yeah, and now that you got there, you got to protect it because you worked very hard for it.
Yeah. So
Yes,
true.
yes.
How do you help high achievers who seem successful on the outside but feel stuck on the inside?
Very good question. It goes back, early on when I was talking about those three things about you have to know yourself and you have to be yourself and surround yourself, that I really want the person that appears to be successful on the outside, but stuck on the inside or dissatisfied on the inside, is that you must unpack things. You must peel the onion back and really do a self reflection and to know who you are and try to encourage them to stay true to themselves at all cost. That there's so many people that are going to tell you this, that, and the other, but you know you better than anybody else. You have been in your own skin all your life. And so you have to spend that time. And that once you truly do that, I really think that's the way you can become unstuck, because sometimes it's all in your head, or it's a matter of perception, or it's a matter of trying to people please, or things like that. So really just kind of focus on, hey, this is my life. What do I really want? And, even though it may be, tough here, do that self-talk to truly affirm yourself to get you to take that next step to get where moving in the direction that you want to go.
Yeah. How do you get them to get to that level of self awareness? Because I know me personally, that was probably one of the hardest things I had to do was sit there and learn about myself and become more self aware.
Yeah, I try to do some key activities to where they can spend some time, like just reflecting on all the things that they think have been horrible. Like, let's just write them all down, like all the things that I wish I hadn't done this. I don't know why I did that, have you. And then you tear that up because that's now part of the past and that's part of some learnings. And then I like them to put a mirror up and then to say some, positive affirmations and to begin to talk to themselves and to talk about how wonderful they are and how they can have and deserve everything that they want in this life. And then I like them to do what I talked about, is a future self, and writing a future self letter. I often try to say, let's think about you 5 years from today, and what do you want your future self to look like, and to write that down. And then from there, we're able to create an action plan based upon where they want their future self to look. But you do have to let go of some of that baggage and to make sure you're operating from a heal standpoint. Because I know for me, I talked about that seventh grade year for my son. I held on to that for a very long time because even though, my son now is 25, I kept holding on to it. My son told me a couple of years ago, he says, "Mom, you were such a terrific mom." Let it go. Like, we have to let it go. But I kind of held on to that because I felt like I should have done things, differently, and wish I could have done things differently. But at that point, I was too immature, and I just felt like I had to keep going in that career direction that I was going, that I couldn't really speak up to say, okay, I need to, maybe do this instead, at least for now that I had to raise my son alone in the end.
Yeah. Like, I think that's probably one of the hardest things too, is like learning to forgive yourself for your mistakes.
Yep. Hmm.
What
Definitely.
what does it mean to lead with both strategy and soul? And how do you coach people into doing both?
Oh, yes. Yeah, leading with strategy and soul. So the way that I think about it is I always think you have to think about lead with the end in mind. And that's kind of where the strategy comes in. And then when you kind of look at the soul, is that you really have to kind of think about, the passion, and making sure that you're kind of showing up as your best self, as you're kind of executing that strategy. And so instead of working from A to Z, I like to go from Z to A. Think about, what are you trying to achieve? And then we can strategically come up with a plan on how to get there. And then making sure that you're truly committed to it, and that at that point you kind of show up as your full self, and the whole soul just kind of comes out because people can see that you're really into it. You're really passionate about what you're doing and the approach that you're taking.
Yeah. What were some of your toughest leadership lessons that you've learned while working at IBM?
I have so many of them. So many of them. Yeah, but I would say the one, if I were to think of one, and this is, I actually started my corporate career in the oil and gas industry when I was a sophomore in college, and I was working for a company called Amoco, and then Amoco sold us to BP, who sold us to PricewaterhouseCoopers, who sold us to IBM. So that's how I became an IBMer. So collectively through those companies, I have the 32 years of corporate experience, and IBM is about 20 of those years. So the story that I'm going to tell is not an IBM story. It's something that happened pre-IBM. Early on, when I became a leader, I don't think I knew how to lead. I was focused on that title. I was, very young and immature. And I learned over time that basically you really want to lead differently. You really want to show people that you truly care about them personally. And I began to learn that secret sauce because I had a manager that she was not caring for her team, and I knew I didn't wanna be like that. And I was like, I know that I am no nonsense, but I definitely wanna come across as some compassion." And so when I saw her, I was like, that's not the way you should do it." And so I began to loosen up because, I'm an extrovert, I really like people. So I'm like, "Okay, I feel like I can show people that I care, and we can still be accomplished. We can still hit our goals." And so basically, when I learned that and I started to implement that as I was working and leading people, I got so much better results. Like, people worked so much harder for me and so much harder for the team because they felt appreciated, they felt seen, and I gave them the latitude of being human and to see that they were bringing their whole self to work, and that I was appreciating them, for that. So though that would be, one key learning that I kind of learned in pre-IBM days. And so by the time I came into IBM, I felt like I had that whole leadership approach down, and I removed myself from the title and the position and focused on the action of leading.
Yeah, I didn't think when I first got into a leadership role too. I was thinking, oh, I just want the title, and the title makes me a leader too. I think so many people think that. Well, I'm
Yeah.
not a leader because I don't have that title.
Yes.
What is one moment in your career or coaching journey that completely changed how you show up for others?
I would say, I'll never forget, there was a big issue that had occurred in the workplace where I felt like an individual was not being treated fairly. And I was in the meeting at the table, and I initially was just there, not saying anything. And then I felt like, okay, I'm at this table for a reason, that I need to use my voice to make sure that people are treated fairly. So, I actually asked some very challenging questions and try to get people to see things through a different lens, because I do think there's always a bifocal view that you need to look at when you're in an environment. And so I began to get people to see things differently, to see how that individual had not been given, the tools that they needed to be successful, and that we owed it to that individual. It was, someone that was, fresh out of college, had not gotten properly trained, and now his performance evaluation was really horrible. But I'm trying to see, did we do all the things? Were all the right things, provided to that individual? So that made me feel really good that I figured out a way to do it in a very tactful manner that was well received. And that's where I really realized that, when you're sitting at these tables, you got to stand up for what's right. And at the same time, it showed me that, hey, my whole purpose is to really serve and help people. And that's what I really like to do.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
What inspired your book, 30 Days of Yes? And how can you saying yes change someone's life?
Yeah, so I retired in 2023, and I spent some time self-reflecting, and I realized in my life that I had been so focused on everything and everybody else that I had not prioritized myself. And here I'm sitting at that time 52 years old, and I'm like, "You know what? Never once have I prioritized myself." And it felt like I was feeling guilty when I did do that, and so I really was trying to give myself permission, empowering myself to say yes to me. And then as I was talking to people, I felt like, and I found there were so many other people that were in a similar situation. And I had written the book, it was so many pages. And then I began to let other people read it. And I began to skinny the book down to make it something that's truly digestible, not just something that's motivational, but really a practical journey of things that you can do over 30 days so that you're prioritizing yourself, and for you to know that it is necessary for you to love yourself. It's necessary for you to prioritize yourself, that you can't pour from an empty cup, basically. And so I've now started this whole yes to me movement. That book was released in 2024. Since that time, I've started a nonprofit called the Yes to Me Foundation. And a couple of weeks ago, I just released my second Yes to Me version book called Break the Cycle, because I want us to continuously figuring out, what do we need to do differently so that we can have the very best life, because we deserve it, because life is very short and precious.
Yeah. So is your new book released now then?
Yes, it's called Yes to Me, Break the Cycle.
Nice. What advice would you give to someone out there on the fence about saying yes to an opportunity that scares them?
Yeah, I would say that I always believe you have to pray about things first, and take some risk, that you never know if you don't try it. So if you have an opportunity and it scares you, like, what do you have to lose? Like, you don't have anything to lose. Either you will gain and do what you expect, or you'll learn from it. Either way, it's a win. So just, have the right perspective, have the right attitude, and just go do it, and know that you can do it.
Yeah, so true. You live by the quote, shoot for the moon. How has that belief shaped your success and mission?
Yeah, that's been my favorite quote since I was a little girl. Shoot for the moon. If you miss, you'll be among the stars. And it just says, shoot really high. And even if you don't make it, you'll land somewhere really beautiful still. And I just feel like I always dreamed big as that little girl. I knew I was better than the environment I grew up in. And I wanted more. I wanted my grandmother, who made so many sacrifices, to be very proud of me. I want it to be a testament that a girl, skinny, shy girl from the hood, can go and recreate herself and accomplish anything in this world. And so that's kind of, has been a motivational factor for me overall.
Yeah, I love that quote because I think so many people shoot and aim so much so small in their goals. It's like if you aim high, you're going to hit something big.
Exactly. Definitely.
How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I like to keep things very simple. So I have a one-stop shopping. If you go to my website, which is www.anouk-mc.com. And again, that's www.anouk-mc.com. And on my website, you can get my phone number, to reach out to me. You can get connected to me to all of my social media sites. You can purchase my books. I actually have 3 books. The Yes to Me 30 Days too. I also have Yes to Me Break the Cycle, and also have a leadership book called You're Working Too Hard. And you can, sign up for coaching sessions and see other things that I have going on, but everything is on that website.
Awesome. And I'll put that in the show notes for everyone too.
Thank you.
Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
I would just like to encourage anybody that is, struggling, to just know that this is your life. You can co-create the life that you want. That life is short, life is precious, that time is the only currency we don't know how much we have. And so we better go do whatever we want to do on this life so we don't have any regrets, or we have minimal regrets, because we'll still probably have some. And just don't be too hard on yourself. Like, try something. If it doesn't work, figure out what you learn from it and keep going. Just, keep going, because I believe the best is yet to come.
Yeah, great advice right there. All right, final question.
Mhm.
What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
Know that there's going to always be adversity. And so it goes back to mindset, that making sure that you realize that you're going to learn something from it. And so always put yourself in a position of, what am I to learn from this, versus saying, why is this happening to me? Figure out, what are you supposed to learn from it, and know that there has to be a reason that you're kind of going through that, and it's going to help propel you to your next.
Awesome. Great advice right there, too. Well, Anouk, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your great insight with all of us.
Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it. And this has actually inspired me, our conversation.
I love it. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.
Yes.